here we are dedicated, giving everything to the uplift of our people, everything. And oftentimes those people don't seem to give a damn.
I want to start this video by giving thanks to Dr. Runoko Rashidi. Thank you for raising awareness of our history. Thank you for all of your travels, for giving us a deeper understanding of the African world, connecting Africa to places like Melanesia and Australia, and reaffirming the bonds between Africans and Proto-Africans. May you have an easy journey into the realm of the ancestors. Dr. Runoko was one of our scholars who continuously engaged the community, emphasizing the importance of doing field research, not just reading books and regurgitating the same old, a message I believe he got from Destruction of Black Civilizations, a book by Chancellor Williams who asks future readers to become researchers like himself, to advance our body of knowledge, a message that Dr. Runoko embraced as seen by his recurring travels to Kemet, aka Egypt, and Asia, looking for ancient and modern African influences. This video, however, is not supposed to be a summary of the life of Dr. Runoko, but more of a conversation about the lessons he wanted us to learn from, and things that he may not have explicitly stated, but still drew my attention. I want to emphasize that I see this more of a conversation than anything else. So, what are the lessons that we can learn from? Studying the greats of our community, there's a clear message that they wanted to impart. There's still so much to be done, so much to build upon the foundations of our predecessors. We have the responsibility of creating the future historians, archaeologists, storytellers, etc., to disseminate the information within our community. For example, Dr. Runoko spoke about documenting the history of the Proto-African heritage worldwide, especially in Melanesia. We also have Dr. Meinu Ampim, who is doing fieldwork in Sudan, trying to preserve the Nubian and Kushite legacy, since the Sudanese government is once again flooding another area of ancient sites. Here in Europe, we have Dr. Sada Mirey, the first Somali archaeologist, rediscovering ancient rock arts in Somaliland. These places are usually disregarded, partially because of lack of funding, compared to places like Kemet. I say this to address a statement often made online. Critics who say, why aren't we excavating places like Dartigit or the Nog civilization? To me, the answer is twofold. We as a community aren't fully embracing the responsibility of creating the new generation of scholars. Plus, these projects lack support and funding needed for them to excel. Something that the critics themselves never talk about. You cannot criticize the focus on Kemet if you as an individual do not support the scholars in other areas. Dr. Runoko did not come into his own without help. As a protege of Dr. Ivan van Sertima, he was a fine example of being passed on the torch. He spoke on this recently in his interviews on the channel, On the Shoulders of Giants. He was also mentored by the likes of Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, and John G. Jackson. These scholars are the examples, and we should use them as a standard today. The community needs to see that we can work with each other, just like our predecessors did. Black men and black women in partnership with each other as a common front, working hard to build up institutions that cultivate successes. So that when we become the elders, we can rely on each other to move forward. This is how we change the proverb, when an elder dies, a library burns. Can we change the loss of information? Nobody knows, but perhaps this video may lead to a better way to preserve the knowledge of our elders. And not only that, but to also learn to work with each other, even though we may not always like each other. We need to be approachable, accessible, and just be in touch with the younger generation to teach, build, and empower those behind us, just like Dr. Runoko did. Our historical narrative always had African women in prominent roles. It's obvious to me that Dr. Runoko wanted to remind us that black women always had their own agency within our societies. He wanted us to get unstuck from the patriarchal ways embedded in Western culture, and by effect, recentering ourselves on the African paradigm, or ways that traditionally held women in high regard. Black women were not just wives and mothers. The view of being subservient is a residue of Roman culture, something that's inherited in what we call Western society. Black women were warriors, religious figures, scholars, symbols of divinity, and more. He wanted to remind us of their roles within our classical and modern history with names like Amos Nefertari, Queen Nzinga, Queen Amina of Sassau, NANNY of the Maroons, Amy Ashwood Garvey, and Cecile Fatimang, letting us men know that we did not fear nor should we fear black women standing in their power. He once said, next to every great man, there's a great woman next to him, and sometimes even in front of him. He frequently encouraged to speak highly of black women, to be with black women, love black women without compromise, and that we need each other.
Here we are dedicated, giving everything to the uplift of our people, everything. And oftentimes those people don't seem to give a damn. The masses of our people, tell me I'm wrong, ain't interested in Sheikh Anta Diop's African origin of civilization myth or reality. They're not talking about empowerment. I mean, that frustrates me.
In my view, we should speak on this more often. A lot of our scholars died in poverty and obscurity and had a terrible time funding their projects in a stable manner, let alone living off their earnings from lectures and books. Baba Runoko himself, like his predecessors, were not financially stable. I suggest to buy his book, My Global Journeys in Search of the African Presence, and read between the lines. He sacrificed his health and wealth to personalize the black diaspora to us. Again, these elders were not financially stable. John G. Jackson died in a nursing home. Dr. Ben also died in a nursing home. Dr. Clark himself could not afford Braille translations as he was nearly blind. Dr. Ivan von Sertima had to nearly beg to get paid. Dr. Welsing's family had to rely on community funding for funeral expenses. Dr. Runoko's family also had to do the same thing. To be clear, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus in any way. To solve a problem, we must be willing to accept that the problem exists, so that we can commit to solving it. We gotta show love while our legends are still alive. It's human to want appreciation, to see that you're making a change and that the people who say they love you, that they also support you with their wallet, showing that we do give a damn.
What I want people to do is engage in critical thinking. We don't have to agree with each other. And also, I think that we have a tendency to idolize and immortalize, our great scholars. But the research doesn't stop there. And I get frustrated when I hear people quote Ivan or Sheikh Anta Diop or Chancellor. That's great. Now, what you doing? All of us have the capacity to make history.